On April 11th, 2011, Edge announced on an episode of Raw that he was forced to retire from professional wrestling due to cervical spinal stenosis. His doctors at the time told him that if he took a hard fall, say a bump to the mat, he would be at risk of neck-down paralysis or even death. He relinquished the World Heavyweight Championship, and outside of a couple of on-screen appearances and his Hall of Fame induction, that was it for Edge in ring in WWE. Until January 26, 2020, nearly 9 years later, when Edge was a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. It was a great moment, one of the all-time great Rumble surprises. Edge was back, and it was summed up perfectly by this guy's reaction.
You think you know me?
Edge! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Sadly, he had a complete snorefest against Randy Orton at WrestleMania and picked up an injury in the rematch at Backlash. A good match for sure, but it was hurt by the WWE marketing of the greatest wrestling match ever, setting it lofty expectations that it was never going to hit. And that injury sidelined him once again, finally returning at this year's Royal Rumble and going on to win the whole thing. We rejoiced on our WrestleTalk livestream reactions, but was surprised to see that the following day, not everyone shared in our joy. After everyone loved the return in 2020, him winning the Rumble just 1 year later and challenging for a top title at WrestleMania turned a portion of the fans against him, labeling him as yet another Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, or any of the other part-timers who are stealing spots from the younger guys. Honestly, it was quite surprising. And although Edge has since appeared on NXT and SmackDown and has said he will be a full-timer while in this position, it hasn't stopped people thinking that this Edge return might not be all it was cracked up to be. But has this reaction tarnished the reputation of Adam Copeland? Are people now ignoring the hard work he did prior to his injury? Is Edge actually good? Before we get into the meat of this video, I'd like to thank you for clicking on it in the first place to check it out. Please do subscribe to partsFUNknown, give this video a thumbs up, and back us on Patreon for cool perks like being featured in this video, like some will be later on. Edge debuted in WWF back in 1998 as this loner character, but his career really picked up later that year when he was teamed with Gangrel and Christian, who would then be billed as his brother for storyline purposes. Edge and Christian had actually been friends since they were 10 years old, and this helped their chemistry when they split away from the Brood and became an established tag act, which really kicked off in 1999 and 2000. The ladder match with the Hardy Boys at No Mercy, the triple threat ladder match that also included the Dudley Boys at WrestleMania 2000, the first ever TLC at that year's SummerSlam, the rematch of that TLC encounter at WrestleMania X7. It was a near 3-year run of fantastic matches, but also superb backstage and in-ring segments. Edge and Christian took on this surfer dude style of character that was akin to Paulie Shaw in Encino Man and made it less annoying than Paulie Shaw in Encino Man.
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro, and we figure we's a little juice.
WWE clearly saw Edge as the breakout star of the duo, splitting up the team during the WCW invasion and giving him various mid-card championship wins, including becoming the first dual WWF Intercontinental and WCW United States champion. He had some controversy around 2004-2005 when a storyline relationship with Lita became something very real, despite her being in a real-life relationship with Matt Hardy at the time. Hardy in all of this was then fired by WWE, which made the already heel Edge an even bigger heel in the eyes of the fans as everyone took Matt's side. And this heel heat just propelled him further into the main event scene, winning the first Money in the Bank ladder match and cashing in on John Cena nearly 1 year later at New Year's Revolution 2005. It was something we'd seen a few times in WWE in the past, but not something you see very regularly now. The slow rise to the top. Edge started in a tag team and won gold there. He then broke off into being a single star and won mid-card titles, and then made his way into the WWE Championship picture in the main event. Steve Austin had done it, Triple H had done it, The Rock had done it, and now Edge had done it. and Edge would remain in the main event scene for the rest of his WWE run, winning the WWE Championship 4 times and the World Heavyweight Championship, some would say his belt, 7 times. He won the 2010 Royal Rumble, he won Money in the Bank a 2nd time, he successfully defended his title at WrestleMania. While he was never the guy for the company, there was a long period of time where he was the face of SmackDown, the biggest star on that brand. Let's not mess around here either, he has one of the best wrestling themes of all time in Metalingus. Honestly, I've never heard another Alter Bridge song in my life, but I don't need to, because Metalingus is the greatest song ever written that isn't The Touch by Stan Bush. And before that he had Rob Zombie as its entrance theme, so yeah, he has had the creme de la creme of wrestling entrance themes. Edge has a career of highlights. Each year has its moments, and they're all fondly remembered. Edge and Christian were legitimately the first tag team I ever properly hated as a fan. I was meant to, of course, because they were the heels. You see, I was a Hardy Boys fan, and I hated these 2 blonde dorks who kept beating them all the time. But Edge was also my guy. He was my hero because he beat John Cena for the title in 2005 when I was getting so sick and tired of John Cena after getting back into wrestling. In fact, his run with Cena are some of the best matches of WWE in a time period when people were switching off the product in favor of going over to TNA. Now we could stand around in my snowy garden all day, freezing my tits off. My wedding rings come very loose because it's so cold out here. We could stand around here and recap Edge's career to see if he's actually good, but that's really not going to answer the question. To answer this question, we need to consult our old friend, science. Right, okay, it's time for everyone's favourite portion of these videos, the science section, and it's everyone's favourite because it's undisputedly science. Because, what else could it be? I'm adding numbers together and creating an average. It's not geography, is it? Science. I'm going to look at Edge's WrestleMania run, but specifically I'm going to look at his singles run, when essentially he'd split off from Edge and Christian and was just being pushed as a single star. Interestingly though, that doesn't actually kick off until Mania 21. He did have a match at Mania 19, I think it is, but it was like a throwaway match, maybe it was 18, against Booker T, and it went like 6 minutes. And no one really gave an S, really. 4.5 stars for the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. That is a great start. WrestleMania 22 versus Mick Foley, 3 3/4 stars, which I actually think that's a bit low. It's probably one of Mankind or Mick Foley's best Mania matches, right? Same again for Mania 23, again in the Money in the Bank. Didn't win that one. Kennedy won that one? Onwards, he's now in a full main event position here, headlining WrestleMania against The Undertaker, outside of Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania. Bang! 4.5 stars for Edge versus Undertaker. Well deserved 4.5 stars as well, because that match is banging. Mania 25 against John Cena and Big Show, triple threat. Bit of a throwaway match, that one, so 3.25 stars. Yeah, I think that's fair. Mania 26 versus Chris Jericho, that's 4 stars for that one. Another really good match, actually. And then his final WrestleMania match, not including the Randy Orton Snorefest, as previously mentioned, against Alberto Del Rio, 3.5 stars. That is an incredible level of consistency. That is really, really good. There isn't a dud match in this. And when you want to talk about big match performers stepping up to the plate, you look at WrestleMania. You look at someone who takes the ball that's been given to them and they run with it. And that is what Edge did in every single one of these WrestleMania matches. A wonderful average 4 stars for WrestleMania. That's great. Why isn't Edge talked about as like one of the great WrestleMania performers? Sure, we get like Michaels and Undertaker get that claim. Triple H often gets that claim as well because he brings out the big matches. But look at Edge, man. Look at this. This is pure scientific fact and proof that Edge is actually good.
Is Edge actually good? No. He's actually freaking great.
When you search Edge on the network and you scroll down to see the list of best ofs, you have best of Jeff Hardy, best of The Undertaker, of Kurt Angle, John Cena, the Royal Rumble, TLC, best of WrestleMania, and the common denominator in all of those things is Edge.
Edge was able to fill every role given to him during his time in WWE, whether that be as a comedy heel or as a sadistic, hate-filled heel. He was a great wrestler and came up big in his big matches.
I think for me, what takes Edge to a level of greatness is his understanding of psychology, of character work, of how to build a connection with the audience. When he transitioned into this opportunistic, psychotic, unhinged heel, you wanted to see what happened to him. Even when he did horrible stuff, he could stand at the top of the ramp and make out with someone else's girlfriend and turn to the camera with this smug grin showing all those teeth, or he could wheel out Vicky Guerrero as sort of like a pawn in his psychological game with his opponent and say, I have the powers that be under my thumb. And you would loathe him. And then he'd storm to the ring and give you some of the crispest, most athletic, technical wrestling going. And you just couldn't help but be like, oh, I really hate this person, but I need to see what happens to them.
This guy just always hit, and he was always in a top heel role, but he also could show that he had that edge to him, that anti-hero that was able to cross over and be a successful babyface. And since his return, he's just been incredible on the mic. It's like aging has just made him better in being able to communicate, and he's just become an incredible, awesome, amazing promo guy.
He's a very good entertainer, and he's certainly someone who has had a lot of truly memorable moments throughout his career, from his tag TLC matches, his feud with John Cena, that infamous scene with Lita, and now 2 wins at Royal Rumble, all of which I do think have earned him his spot in WWE's Hall of Fame. That said, personally, I don't ever feel like I've had a strong connection with his character, and he does like that persona which makes a lot of wrestlers truly great and memorable. For me, he just sort of feels like another guy, and whilst he's a really good wrestler in terms of his sportsmanship and athleticism, I don't think that he has a strong moveset, and I hate his spear, and I do genuinely believe that a lot of his success rides on his nostalgic value and his music.
From hating his guts during his time with Vicky Guerrero in 2008, to cheering him on wildly during his returns in the Royal Rumble in 2010, 2020, 2021, there are few wrestlers that have ever been able to make me feel such a wide range of emotions like Edge has.
We took this question to our YouTube community tab, and unsurprisingly, it was very high in favour of Edge being actually good. Only 7% voting for no, which also means that Edge, statistically, is more actually good than the Royal Rumble.
Outside of Rock, Austin, Punk and Jericho, I don't think there's any other performer who has ever been such a perfect balance of great in the ring and great on the mic.
Look at it this way, some of the most memorable, historic and enjoyable matches of all time involved Edge in some capacity, be it the incredible TLC matches or the first ever Money in the Bank cash-in. There's a reason Edge is a legend. He's done everything there is to do in the business, and it's truly felt earned.
One of the greatest top heels of all time, one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time, one of the best all-round performers wrestling has ever seen.
The fact that he can come back after 9 years and wrestle like he's never left makes him an incredible performer.
Yes, he's still got the stuff that made him famous. Good moves, charisma, and a very cheeky smile. The fact that he's been able to overcome a career-ending injury only adds to his appeal and makes us love him more. I just hope he sticks around long enough to put some newer talent over.
Growing up, Edge was someone that made me love to despise his healing tactics. His ability to be extremely talented at crazy spots still amazes me. And when there was a time where I stopped watching, Edge's return at Royal Rumble made me cry so hard that I decided to get back to watching WWE. This impact says a lot about how actually good Edge is. He's one of the best.
But there are still some dissenting voices who are against the Rumble win. The day after the show on our WrestleTalk podcast review, we actually had a fair number of hyperchats that were voicing their displeasure of 47-year-old Edge winning the match when someone younger than him who hadn't previously won the Rumble could have done. And this was probably heightened by the fact that Goldberg had just come back and walked into a WWE Championship match with Drew McIntyre, and we were all super mad about that. Fans, myself included, really did show a certain level of hypocrisy when saying that 54-year-old Goldberg facing Drew is bad, but 8 years younger than him Edge versus Drew or Roman at WrestleMania is good. It certainly didn't help that Edge winning the Royal Rumble was reportedly his idea.
There's definitely a place for old-timers, veterans nearer the end of their career, where you come back, you do have that one last title run, and it's very emotional. That's kind of like your send-off. And crucially, you use that run to put over someone else. And I think a lot of the optimism that I feel towards Edge's run is that I have faith he's going to do that. But with people like Goldberg and John Cena, although John Cena's, he's come around where people like him now, but definitely with Goldberg, we've been there and we've had that. And it didn't result in anyone being more over. In fact, I'd argue it worked against those people like The Fiend and Kevin Owens.
Edge himself addressed these criticisms, being labelled as a part-timer, stealing a spot, etc. on Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast, saying,
"All I can control is trying to be in the best shape I can possibly be in, and bust my ass in the gym so that at least I can look the part, move the part, feel the part. And that's all I can control. I can't control people's opinions. I can't control if people have ageism issues. I can't, I can't do any of that. What I want to do is come back and tell a hell of a story and tell it with multiple dance partners. Somehow I've been able to get through 4 decades with a break in there and have laid hands on Ric Flair and Jerry Lawler and Terry Funk and The Undertaker and Rick Martel and Bad News Brown and Shawn Michaels and all of these talents throughout the years. And if I can do what those guys did for me, for a new generation of talent, that's part of the reason I wanted to come back.
And in a lot of this, I think it's important to look at the context. Goldberg's recent WWE return saw him beat Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship and then The Fiend for the same belts when he didn't need either of those wins. Goldberg has always been labelled as a guy who wins because he wants to win. And he always wants to win because he's very protective of the Goldberg character. Edge, going by the Corey Graves interview, is using his star power to elevate guys on Raw, SmackDown, and even NXT. So, what's incredible when asking if Edge is actually good on our YouTube poll, other than some people really not wanting me to do this video because it's too simple of a topic, is that the only 2 issues people have had with Edge are the Matt Hardy-Lita situation from 16 years ago and the Rumble win from last month. Seen as though he's been wrestling on the main roster of WWE since 1999, that's pretty impressive. And I come back to that comment we featured earlier. Edge has been part of so many iconic WWE moments, whether that is the first ever Money in the Bank cash-in, the first ever TLC match that set the bar so ridiculously high that none of the matches since have ever reached it, or even the first ever live sex celebration. Edge has done it all, and he excels at everything he's given. Be in a comedy tag team with Christian, nailed it. Be the breakout star of that team, sure thing. Get the briefcase gimmick over? Yep. Be a main event heel, no sweat. Main event WrestleMania with The Undertaker? Walk in the park. Be a tag team with Randy Orton so DX can have someone to feud with? Tell you what, will actually be more over than DX themselves. Edge has seen and done it all, and this Rumble win makes me feel like we're only just getting started all over again. As I said earlier, Edge is one of the first heels I truly hated. Yeah, I hated Triple H and William Regal because they were clearly heels, but I really disliked Edge and Christian, and I hated them beating the Hardy Boys all the time. They worked me every single time. It felt like those teams had matches on every pay-per-view in the year 2000, and honestly, I could watch them again and again and again, cheering on the Hardy Boys to beat these dumb blonde idiots. Just listen to how happy I was when I saw him return at the Rumble last year.
What?
It is! Yes! It is! I knew it!
Yes!
Yes! Yes! It kinda sucks to say, but Edge will never be in the same conversation as Hogan, Michaels, Brett, Rock, Austin, Triple H, Cena, Batista, Undertaker, or even Roman Reigns, because it's never felt like WWE truly made him the guy. But he probably should be. It's undeniable that he's one of the best guys WWE has ever had, and easily the most consistent. I'm glad he's back, I'm glad he won the Rumble, I'm excited to see what he'll do in the future. Is Edge actually good? Maybe it's nostalgia goggles talking, but yeah, he's one of the best.